Shout out to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to make an adoptable for the first time. Something I've always wanted to try is making an adoptable. If you don't know what an adoptable is, basically an artist makes a character design and then someone else can purchase the design. It's basically like buying an OC. As many of you know, I love to design characters, but I don't need any more OCs. So this allows me to design the OC, but instead of it getting added to my OC pile, it gets to go to someone else who may use the design more than I would. Also, before we start, I wanted to say thank you so much for all the supportive comments on my last video. They all meant a lot to me. I don't want it to seem like I'm ignoring the things I discussed in that video, but I will most likely not be talking about any of that in this video. Mostly because I want this video to be more lighthearted. Plus there isn't a lot for me to update you all on since there is still a lot we don't know. So yeah, anyways, let's jump into the video. To start out, I'm making an inspiration board in Milanote. I found a bunch of different pictures on Pinterest and now I'm arranging them into categories. I had a few different ideas in mind for this OC. I was thinking maybe a fun and colorful design, a food theme design, or a star theme design. And then I thought it might be fun to combine all of these ideas. So a colorful food themed star OC. The hardest part about this theme is combining stars with food. And well, a fun food that came to mind as I was brainstorming is konpeito. I hope I'm saying that right. It's also known as star candy. It's a Japanese candy that comes in a lot of colors and are kind of star-shaped. Star bits in Mario Galaxy were actually inspired by konpeito. And so even though they are called star candy, which is spacey, the fact that they are kind of in Mario Galaxy also makes me really associate them with space. So that is my theme for this character. Before jumping into designing the character, I wanted to make some materials to make the drawing process for the character faster. I wanted to pre-make the star shapes and konpeito shapes to save time. Because shading a bunch of tiny star-shaped candies sounded really tedious, I did find some konpeito brushes on the Clip Studio Paint asset library, and I'm going to use them for reference. Right now I'm starting by drawing the more star-shaped pieces. These ones will be larger and more for the accessories. I drew 3 stars. The first one is in front view, the second one is in side view, kind of, and the third is in a turned view. I did rough in some shading to help me get a better idea of how they will look. I want them to be very shiny and jewel-like. I upscale my sketches and can now draw cleaned up versions. Instead of using normal layers, I'm going to use vector layers for the line art of these. I thought this might help make the process go a bit more smoothly. And plus I wasn't sure if I was going to want to adjust the width of the line art at all. And adjusting the width is easier to do with vector layers. Vector layers basically make it so the lines that you draw have points that you select within them. At first there is a lot of points, but I use the Simplify Vector tool to make there be less points. I slightly adjust the points to my liking. Vector layers are really nice because you can transform them and resize them without losing line quality. Next I'm adding all of the shading. I am relying on the rough idea I sketched out earlier. This time, however, I'm using gray instead of purple. And you might be thinking, Becca, this doesn't seem very colorful. And yes, it's not, but by making the base gray, I can use layer modes to change the color of the stars later on in the process. I didn't want to have to reshade the stars for each color. Once the first star was done, I repeated the process for the other 2 designs. I tried to keep the highlights and shadows consistent between all of the designs so that the lighting is consistent for them. Next, I quickly made some shapes that are more true to the konpeito shapes. I used my rough line art brush and made it really large to make random shapes. And then just kind of blobbed in different shading values to add form. This was actually a lot of fun to do. I really enjoyed this part. So now we have the shapes. We'll come back to these later to make different colors and to turn them into brushes and materials. But for now, let's go over to working on the character. I had started by setting up some 3D models. At first I had planned to draw a full character turnaround, but I ended up not having time for that. Anyways, I brought in a screenshot of some of my inspiration pictures. And for the color scheme, I decided to use this set of candy as my reference, since this color set felt the most space-like to me. With my layer set to have the outline border effect turned on, I use a brush to block in shapes. This allows me to test out ideas with color without going into a lot of detail. It's also much faster compared to sketching things out. I tried a few different ideas for hair ranging from short, long, 2 buns, 1 bun, but none of them were feeling right, and I was feeling a little bit stuck. So I decided to go to the clothes. The only thing I knew for the clothes is that I wanted to draw a fluffy skirt that used a dark color so that it showed off the candy colors that I will add all over the skirt. So the lower half of the clothes didn't give me too much trouble, but I had to try a lot of different ideas for the top portion of the dress. Also, I did have Milanote open on my phone and I was looking at my references on there. I was too lazy to bring them into Clip Studio Paint. I was trying a lot of different shapes for the top, and eventually I got to one that had white sleeves, and it made me think that a sheer top that fades to white would be really cool. And as the top gets more opaque, we get more of the candy on the sleeves. I also added a corset to the front since it was feeling very empty, and I thought this would be an interesting detail. For the shoes, I was originally going to go with a chunky sneaker sort of thing, but that didn't really feel like it fit this dress, so I went with more of a chunky heel. And I'm going to have the tights on her legs mimic the top portion of her dress. It sort of gives me figure skater vibes, which is totally okay with me since I often really love figure skating outfits. I decided to get rid of the choker, and instead I changed the top to a swoop neckline, and I'll line it with small candy shapes. Okay, so back to the head area. For the eyes, I wasn't sure what colors I wanted, but I ended up going with a darker blue, and I'll add accents with the lighter colors in them. For the hair, I tried this one longer hairstyle that's sort of a half up, half down look, and it has the underpart dyed with the lighter colors. And I was close to going with this, but I thought I would try one more idea. And this idea was a jellyfish haircut. It's a haircut that's mostly cut as a bob, but the underneath part is left long. It's a very interesting style that was trending for a little while, and I felt like it was the unique look that I was wanting. It gives the mixture both short and long, plus I thought it would work well with the different colors. So here's my rough idea, and now we can start sketching things out in more detail. We are going to kind of speed through the process here since I do feel like I explained all of my design choices in the previous segment. Also, I did sketch over the 3D model to make things go faster. The 3D model has proportions edited to match pretty closely to how I draw body proportions. A lot of times I prefer to draw things like this on my own without the aid of a 3D model because I do feel like it's good practice. But I haven't been drawing as fast as I usually do, and I haven't been feeling 100%. Getting work done has been kind of tricky, so forgive me for using some assistance. I was a bit nervous because I did like my rough idea, but I wasn't sure how I would like it when drawn in more detail. But thankfully I feel like it was looking quite cute. I like how the face turned out, and the outfit has a nice flow, I think. Once my sketch was done, I decided to do a page layout that includes close-up shots of certain details. Things like the shoes, how the sleeves go onto her hands, and a close-up of her face, which I am working on right now. My plan is to outline the larger version, and then I will rescale the line work to the smaller version. That way I don't have to draw things twice. Also, we switched over to camera footage for this portion. It's been a while since I've included camera footage in my videos, so I thought it'd be nice to add in. Plus, I find that super sped up footage is a little bit less dizzying with the camera footage for some reason. So it works well for line art since I am rotating my canvas a lot to match the pivot of my wrist. I most of the time do slower footage for the line art when I capture it with my camera because it is kind of satisfying to watch. But I decided to go with sped up footage this time just to kind of mix things up and try something different. Like I said at the start, I've always liked the idea of adoptables since it lets me design a character, but then the design goes to someone who might use the design more than I would. However, I have always been hesitant to make one because of the more complicated aspects of it, like making a terms of service and outlining how the buyer can use the character. Obviously, once someone adopts the character, it is basically their OC. However, there are usually some rules or stipulations in place to protect the artist and the design they made. You also need to outline things for commercial use if you're allowing the buyer to use the character for money-making purposes. Things like merch, for example. So yeah, I found all of that to be intimidating, but I spent a lot of time looking at other people's terms of service and got a decent idea of what I would like to include in mine. When you read it, it does sound a bit intimidating or complicated, but long story short, if you treat the character with care and respect, don't claim my art as yours, and credit me for the design for commercial use, we won't have any issues. Plus, I'm very workable, so you can just send me a message if you are the person that adopted the character, and we can totally work things out if there does happen to be any issues. Anyways, now the line work is done, and next I'm going to finish up the konpeito materials. But before that, I want to talk about some other Japanese snacks that were sent to me by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. the sponsors of this video. Experience Japan from the comfort of your own home through Tokyo Treat and Sakurako snack boxes. Yes, these are both snack boxes, but each offer a unique experience. Tokyo Treat is a fun and exclusive monthly snack box packed with Japan's coolest and craziest snacks. Each month you'll get a rare Kit Kat flavor, limited edition chips, noodles, and the latest treats from Japan straight to you. Sakurako is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local makers across Japan. Each box is carefully curated with traditional and seasonal snacks like mochi, dorayaki, manju, and more, including signature Japanese teas and an exclusive homeware item. Sakurako delivers an authentic taste of Japan to your home. Both boxes come with a booklet that allows you to learn more about the snacks you receive, as well as allergen information. They also contain a ton of interesting information about Japan and its culture. This time, Tokyo Treat's theme is Sakura Night Snack Fest. Experience the fun of Japan at night with Tokyo Treat, featuring Sakura-flavored treats and tasty seasonal snacks like matcha latte Kit Kats, Sakura sandwich cookies, Twilight truffle chips, and many more. My two personal favorites were the Sakura Castella cake and Sakura matcha wafers. This Castella cake is soft and sweet with a lovely cherry flavor. It was really yummy. These crunchy wafers mix matcha and a hint of Sakura, making for a tasty treat. Next we have Sakurako, the theme of Moonlight Sakura. This month, experience the beauty of Yozakura nighttime cherry blossom viewing with authentic flavors such as delicate wagashi sweets and Sakura hibiscus tea. Plus, this month's home good is a Sakura wagashi plate, and it is so cute and pretty. I love it so much. My two favorite snacks in this box were the Sakura mochi and Sakura dorayaki. I'm always super excited to see a big bag of mochi. The mochi is so soft and the flavor is so subtle and sweet. It's really good. These dorayaki are filled with Sakura-infused white bean paste. It pairs perfectly with the wheat dough. These boxes are always a special treat and make great gifts for loved ones or yourself. If you want to check them out, you can use my code DRAWMANGA to get $5 off your first box. There are also links in the description and pinned comment down below. Thank you so much again to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Before jumping into coloring, I wanted to finish up the star materials, so I go over one of the stars on a new layer with a color, in this case purple, and I decided on the layer mode hard light since it gave me the look I wanted. I then merged the color layer with the base star layer, and then I basically repeated this for all of the stars. Once I had turned all the shapes to purple, I needed to register them as material, so I go to Edit, Register Material, and Image. In this window, I rename the material so it's easier for me to find it later. I select a category to save it under. In this case, I went with Image Material. Lastly, I check Use for brush tip shape and scale up and down. I then repeated this process for all of the shapes and different colors. It was very tedious, but I think in the end it'll be worth it. So to make my star candy brush, I'm going to use this konpeito brush I downloaded as my base, and basically just switch out the materials that are being used for my own materials. I did also play around with the settings a bit, mostly to make it so that the materials don't rotate. I wanted them to keep their highlights in the same position, so I didn't want them rotating around. I also wanted a line version of this brush, so I made a duplicate of my spray one and turned off the spray effect. This makes it so the shape will be in a line instead of spraying sporadically. I did the same process with the star shapes as well. Okay, so now we can go on to coloring. Yay! I filled in the base colors and now I'm adding the gradient of different colors. For the hair, I went back and forth on a few different ideas. The first one was similar to my original idea, but then I thought I would try having the color be at the top instead of the bottom. But I felt like the lighter colors would make the hair accessory not stand out as much if they were on the top. So I went back to the darker color being on the top. But then I wasn't sure how I wanted the lower part of the hair colors to flow. Eventually I kind of just decided that I liked this look the most. I liked how this version allowed for the bob to stand out from the underside of the hair and they didn't blend together too much. Next I'm dragging in those materials I made to make the headpiece. I did use Puppet Warp to help some of the pieces fit a little bit better with the perspective. Puppet Warp is a newly added Clip Studio Paint feature and I really like it. It's very handy. If you want to hear about a lot of the new Clip Studio Paint features, you can go check out this video. I also moved the hairpiece to the right because I wanted the belt accessory and hair accessory to be on opposite sides. It felt odd having them both be on the left and I felt like this would add more balance. I used the line brush I made for the candy pieces to kind of make a ribbon coming off the larger stars. Also, I'm going to try to put these brushes up on the Clip Studio Paint asset library. If I do, I'll put the info for them up on screen so that you can find them and download them if you want to. Like I said, making the materials was a bit tedious. I think I spent like 2.5 hours creating the materials and brushes. But they definitely made adding all of the little details so much easier and faster compared to drawing them all. Especially for all the little ones scattered all over the skirt. I wanted the candy to kind of fade out as it moved up the skirt, but I felt like it didn't make sense to have them fade, since in my head they are kind of like rhinestones. But then I got the idea to add a layer of mesh fabric that is more opaque at the top and gets more translucent towards the bottom. And this will give the effect I want. It makes sense and is also a fun detail, I feel like. I always find mesh fabrics to be kind of fun. Kind of like I did for the line art, I'm going to shade the larger face and then I'll copy the shading to the smaller one so I don't have to do the same thing twice. I work on the larger one first because if I tried to resize the shading from the smaller version, it would look really pixelated when scaled up to the larger drawing. A part of me is nervous that no one will want to adopt this character. I'm not sure how big the adoptable market is. Plus, I don't really know how many people will like this design. I suppose if no one ends up buying her, I will just keep her. But I do hope that someone will adopt her. Also, I'm not naming the character since I want to allow the buyer to name the character. A lot of times something feels more like your own if you're the one that gets to name it. As you can see, I'm now adding the highlights to the hair. I drew it as a simple band of white at first, and then I erased it into the shape to make it more interesting. Plus, this makes it flow more of the hair and its shape. Once the shape was finalized, I locked the transparency of the layer and added the purple, blue, and green. I thought this would help add more of the fun colors to the top part of the hair and help brighten it up a bit. Plus, I just love colorful highlights on darker colored hair. I always think it looks so cool. The same kind of goes for the eyes. I am mostly using the darker color and then adding in the other colors. I added a soft gradient of the colors as well as highlights that use the colors. Working on these eyes were a lot of fun, and it was very different and fun using these colors. I don't make multicolored eyes super often. So if you are interested in adopting this character, the design is available for purchase over on my Ko-fi. I recently started using Ko-fi for sketch commissions and found that it also lets me sell digital products. When you purchase this adoptable, you get 2 high-resolution files of this character design sheet, one with a background and one without a background. You also get an icon that you can use as a profile picture. I wasn't totally sure what to price the character at. It seems like adoptables can range a lot in price depending on the artist and their skill level, as well as how simple or complicated the design is and how much time was put into it. Overall, I spent a little over 6 hours on this process, which was longer than I was anticipating, but I feel like the time I put into the design shows, or at least I hope it does. After looking at a lot of different prices from different artists, I decided on $80, which I feel like is a fair price, especially since it includes commercial rights. A lot of times if you want commercial rights, that makes the price a lot higher. So yeah, hopefully this character is able to go to a lovely home. This is my first adoptable, and it may be my last if it doesn't go well. But maybe if it goes well, I'll make more adoptables. So here's the finished design of my celestial konpeito character. I loved working with these colors as well as Star Candy inspired elements. I feel like she turned out really cute. Oh, and I'm really happy with how the shoes turned out. They look so shiny. They were a lot of fun to render. But yeah, I'll have a link down in the description and pinned comment if you want to check out my Ko-fi page. Before we end, I want to thank my super awesome YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their support. It means so much to me. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!